Looks like we're on again. Excuse me. We're going to be discussing the concept of the narrator this week. Okay, I gave you a bunch of notes on it, but I want to make sure that you understand what this is all about. Many readers assume that the person telling them the story is the author. Okay, that's not the case. The author doesn't tell the story that you read. The author creates the story that you read. The author writes the story that you read. The author creates a narrator to tell you the story. Okay? So the person telling the story is the narrator, not the author. This is an important concept because if it were really the author telling you the story, then it would be almost impossible for an author to have different kinds of voices coming through. Instead, the author creates a narrator who tells the story, and the author can give that narrator any kind of qualities that he wants. So that narrator may be a reflection of the author, but he may be somebody very different from the author. So keep in mind that the author and the narrator are two very different entities. Okay? Again, the author creates the story, the author writes the story, the narrator tells you the story. Okay? So all of you have watched different kinds of news type programs on not news type programs maybe, but programs that are like 60 Minutes, that kind of thing, or stories that are revealing different kinds of things on television. The person who is telling you that story is a reporter, but the reporter doesn't write those stories. Somebody else does the research, puts together the information for all of those stories, and then the reporter on television tells you the story. Okay? Well, that's what fiction is too. An author does the work of putting together a story, and then he creates a narrator to tell you a story. I put this example in the notes for this week, but let me tell you this. Edgar Allan Poe is still believed by many people to have been a drug addict and a crazy guy, a lunatic, an alcoholic, a philanderer, all sorts of negative things you could say about him. And really, research over the last 100 years, more than 100 years, almost 150 years, has indicated that that just is not true. Poe really lived a very simple life. Poe did have a problem with alcohol, but here was his problem with alcohol. He was allergic to it. If he drank any alcohol at all, he became violently ill and might be down in bed for 2 weeks afterwards. Okay? But Poe, as a writer, created narrators who tell you stories that grip you, who tell you stories where you believe the narrator is crazy, or you believe the narrator is taking drugs, or you believe the narrator is drunk. Poe created these narrators for you. Why did he do this? What Poe really wanted to do was to be a poet, but almost as today, in his days, you really couldn't make money as a poet. So he wrote short stories and sold them, and the public reacted very strongly, very positively to these short stories where he had these narrators telling you the story from the point of view of I, so that it made, hearing a story from the point of view of I sucks you in, makes you feel like you're a part of it because you hear I over again. And so, to some degree, we as readers can become that I. So it's easy for us to be part of the story. Okay? So Poe did that. Now, on the other hand, we've read other stories. The Story of an Hour, okay, where it's told from the point of view of somebody kind of outside observing it all, somebody who's watching things happen, okay, and telling us about it. That narrator telling us about it is a third-person narrator. That person is on the outside, not inside the story. Okay, so that's a third-person narrator. Those are the two major types of narrators. We also get a collective first-person narrator. If we look at A Rose for Emily, the person who told us that story is a collective first-person narrator. He represents the whole town, as the whole town is watching Emily and telling us all the things that the whole town saw. This first-person narrator never has a name, this collective narrator. But it is not William Faulkner. Okay? So in the notes, I give you some other kinds of narrators, omniscient narrators, limited omniscient narrators, etc. So read the notes carefully online. Okay? Also, each week with the video, I want to give you a question, and I want you to email the answer to that question directly to me at my email address that you have on the sheets that I handed out to you. My email address, as you already know, is George, my first name, George, George, C, the number 4, at AOL.com. So each week that we have a video, when I give you a question, email the answer to that question to me. Okay? Here's my question, and answer the question in no more than 2 sentences. Okay? Here's my question for you this week. One of the 2 stories we're going to read is called A Good Man is Hard to Find. And there's a character in that story who is a grandmother. Okay? In no more than 2 sentences, sum up your feelings about that grandmother and email the answer to that question to me. Okay? So, you guys have a good week. Pay attention to the due date for this week's lesson. I believe it's going to be, or for this week's essay, I believe I will ask you to post it by Saturday and make your comments by Sunday. Believe it or not, I have a family reunion with all sorts of relatives that I have never met before outside of Baltimore, Maryland, and that's on Saturday and Sunday. We'll probably be home Sunday night. But the reason for drawing us all together, and this is really cool, is that one of my aunts, my only remaining aunt, is celebrating her 100th birthday. And so we're coming together for my aunt's 100th birthday outside of Baltimore, Maryland. Okay? So I won't be here Thursday or Friday. So if you post your essay Saturday and your responses to, your comments to other people's essays by Sunday, that'll be plenty timely enough. Okay? Thank you, and have a terrific week. It's supposed to be warm all week, so enjoy it.